LoveLore Library. Chapter 756. Su Ching'er touched the half of the man's skin. He was still handsome and charming. Her hands were covered with blood, but she still tried to wipe the blood off his face. Husband, husband, tears of regret rolled down from the corners of her eyes. She choked and said, why didn't you kill me? If you had killed me, so many things wouldn't have happened. Father and mother wouldn't have died. The servants in the mansion wouldn't have died. Even our children wouldn't have died. You just had to kill me. When I was conscious, I begged you to kill me. You always said that you couldn't bear to. Father and mother also said that you couldn't bear to. You all said that you couldn't bear to. Why did you treat me so well? I was the one who deserved to die. You are still so young. After a long time, you will forget about me. You can still marry another wife. She is kind and gentle. She will take good care of our children. Husband, Su Ching'er shed tears and touched the half of the face that was gradually losing its warmth. It's all me, the one who deserved to die is me. Su Ching'er climbed up from his body. She stood up and looked back at Shin Yueji. She didn't know the woman in front of her. But before she could speak, she shed tears first. When those people heard that she had eaten her husband, they all ran away in fear. Even the neighbors who used to live with them ran away. They didn't take anything with them. They were all afraid of her, so afraid that they were like this. Only this person in front of her, after hearing so many things that happened in the Wang family, not only was he not afraid, he even dared to come to see her. Aren't you afraid? What's there to be afraid of? I heard that you were a normal person before, right? Why did you become like this? I don't know. Su Ching'er shook her head in agony. In a day, I'm only clear-headed for 2 hours. For the rest of the time, I'm very hungry. I don't know anything except that my stomach is very empty. If I don't eat, it feels like there are countless ants gnawing on my body. I feel very sad and crazily want to eat. If I can eat something, I'm willing to pay any price. I don't remember what I did when I was unconscious. All I know is that when I woke up, my loved ones were leaving me one by one. They were all eaten into my stomach by me. I asked my husband and the others to kill me, but they didn't want to. As for me, I can't do it at all. My body is not afraid of swords and sabers. I can't kill myself. If it was done by a human, then you should know who you came into contact with or what you ate before you suddenly became like this. What happened in the meantime? Done by a human. Su Ching'er thought about it seriously, but she didn't think for long before she felt a splitting headache. Her head felt like it was being pounded by a heavy object. She clutched her head in pain. I don't know. I really don't know anything. I don't know what happened, who I came into contact with. She really couldn't remember clearly. Although she was conscious for 2 hours, she really didn't know what she had experienced before that. She suddenly knelt in front of Shin Yueji. Miss, are you from the government? Did the government know about it? Are you here to catch me? I beg you, please kill me. I don't want to be like this anymore. She read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, Prince Regent, Messing with Claw Bookstore for free. Chapter 757. I've let my father and mother down. I've let down my child. I've let down so many innocent people in the mansion and my husband. I want to repent to them. I beg you, kill me. Kill me. As long as you can kill me, no matter how much pain I have to suffer, I can bear it. I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't know how many people will die in my hands as long as I'm alive. I don't want to see their families broken up because of me. Miss, I beg you. Kill me. Kill me, she didn't ask for anything now. She just wanted to die. Especially when she saw her beloved husband lying on the ground without a trace of life. It was all because of her. Her heart ached so much that she couldn't breathe. So what if she knew the truth? They were all dead. They were all dead. Even if they knew the truth, they wouldn't come back to life. Such a big thing happened in the capital. I don't know how many people ran away to avoid you. Soon, the officials will come. I came here just because I was curious. As for killing you, I don't know if the person behind the scenes is your enemy or if he has other motives. If you die, the truth will end here. However, according to the description of her, the Wong family treated people kindly. They shouldn't have any enemies in the capital. Since they didn't have any enemies, an ordinary person wouldn't suddenly kill the Wong family in such a cruel way. Moreover, the people in the capital were all commoners. Even if the Wong family had a lot of money in the capital, they wouldn't be acquainted with such a person. The only thing that could be explained was that Shin Yueji's mind was on something else. The person in the dark was just playing with Su Qing'er. He wasn't taking revenge for his enemy. I can only stay conscious for 2 hours. If you don't kill me, my strength will increase after 2 hours. By then, no one will be able to control me. When I go crazy, I won't recognize anyone. I won't recognize anyone. Miss, I will hurt you. Double Happiness, help her check if there's anything on her body. Yes. Shuangxi was a little hesitant. This woman's face was really scary, so much so that she didn't dare to go forward. However, because of her young Mrs. Order, she could only suppress the fear in her heart and go forward. When Su Qing'er saw her approaching, her body suddenly shrank back. She instinctively wanted to retreat out of fear. Seeing her like this, Shuangxi looked at Shin Yueji. Miss? Shin Yueji nodded. Taking out a silver needle from his pocket, Shuangxi told her to sit properly in front of him and not to move. 3 silver needles were inserted into her body. Not long after, Shuangxi was suddenly shaken by the force of the backlash from her body. Then, her whole body flew out like a kite with a broken string. Shin Yueji was shocked and quickly reached out to support her. That was why Double Happiness did not fall from the sky. Her internal energy seemed to have suffered a backlash as a dark red blood trickled down from the corner of her mouth. Shin Yueji's eyes dimmed. Shuangxi wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and showed a peaceful smile to Shin Yueji. Miss, I'm fine. It's just that the thing in this woman's body is very strange. I didn't find any poison controlling her body. Chapter 758. Instead, all the silver needles have turned black. It's as if there's something living in her body that's able to block out external intrusions. Moreover, the 3 silver needles seem to have hurt them. They actually started to resist and struggled desperately inside her body. They're very strong. They're clearly such small things, but I don't know why. But I realized that my strength seems so light in front of them. Moreover, they were as light as a feather. She was no match for them at all. Her inner energy had been shaken violently. In addition, the inner energy in the woman's body and hers had collided with each other. As a result, she was caught off guard and was hit. In that case, her body wasn't poisoned, but something was planted in her body. The thing that's controlling her and causing her to become like this is the thing inside her body. That's right, Mississippi. The thing inside her body is black. Look at the color of the silver needles. The silver needles that I inserted just now must have pricked them. It's only been a while, but the silver needles have already turned black. It's obvious how black they are. They can change color immediately when someone touches them. Su Qing'er more or less understood Shuangxi's words. She stood up shakily and stretched out her hands to protect her chest. Her terrifying face was trembling violently. Black. Black thing. I know. Once I'm extremely hungry, those black worms will struggle out of my body. Previously, in order to tie me up and prevent me from eating anything, those black worms are too hungry. They will run out to find food on their own. What do these black worms look like? They look like worms, but not like worms. They're as long as a person's arm and as thick as that. Their fluids are connected to the ground and they don't have legs. I don't know what they are either. At that time, her entire body had been tied up and she couldn't move. She had seen with her own eyes the black worms coming out of her body. They ran extremely fast and disappeared in the blink of an eye. She knew that they were extremely hungry. When they were extremely hungry, they would go on a rampage inside her body and torture her to death. If she really couldn't satisfy them, and they couldn't control her consciousness, they would run out to eat people. When they were full, they would come back and return to her body. Miss, I beg you, please kill me. I really don't want to kill anymore. In just a few days, I don't know how many people I've killed, and how many innocent people have died in my hands. Speaking of this, she thought of those innocent people who had died. They had their own families and relatives. She didn't just kill her own family, but also those innocent people. They all died because of her. She wiped her tears. It's all me. It's all me. Actually, I'm the one who should die. Actually, I'm the one who should die. If I die, they won't die. Only if I die, my husband, father, mother, my children and the servants of the residence. Su Qing's cries were heart-wrenching, especially when she looked like she was in a situation where she could neither live nor die. Rather than living in regret and despair, she would rather die and end all her troubles. This way, she could go down and ask for forgiveness from them. Chapter 759. I didn't betray my husband. I've never betrayed him. Me and that man. You don't need to be nervous. I didn't say you betrayed your husband. I just want to confirm one thing. Did you already know that the man called Chen Qiuxing liked you? Su Qing'er quickly became silent. She leaned very close to Wang Er, her hands softly caressing his already ice-cold face. Hubby, Chen Qiuxing and I grew up together. I knew about Chen Qiuxing's feelings for me a long time ago. But this person loved to bully me and cause trouble. Compared to Wang Er, who was simple and honest, I chose Wang Er. Chen Qiuxing revealed his feelings to me many times, but I rejected him every time. He persisted. No matter how many times I rejected him, he would still reveal his feelings to me every time. However, my husband is such a fool. He still cares about our brotherhood and wants to hand me over to him. Later, I was worried that the fool would really do that, so I took the initiative and told him that I would only marry him in this life. He thought that I was interested in Chen Qiuxing, but he didn't know that the person I liked was him. Even now, she could still remember the look of surprise on his face when she told him that she liked him. From shock to disbelief, to happiness like a child, he hugged her and spun in circles. Later, she got married to him as she wished. She thought that Chen Qiuxing would give up, but who knew that on the day of the wedding, he actually sent a box over. When the box was opened, all of them were stunned. Inside was the corpse of a cat. It was the corpse of a cat that had been rotting for a long time. It had been dug out from the soil. At that time, the neighbors were eating. When they saw such a disgusting thing and the thick smell of the rotting corpse coming from the cat's body, it ruined everyone's mood. She felt even more uneasy in her heart. Because from then on, Chen Qiuxing seemed to have disappeared from this world, no longer existing. Even his parents and the house they used to live in were all empty, and nothing was left. For a moment, it gave people an illusion, as if they had never existed. After a few years of being on tenterhooks, there was still no news of Chinchoshing and nothing strange happened to our family. Only then did I feel a little relieved. However, I didn't expect to meet him when I went out with my husband this time. He came back. Listening to him, he could still talk and laugh with us as if the unhappiness from many years ago had disappeared. I felt happy for him and put down the big stone in my heart. I thought he had really thought it through. If Shin Yueji hadn't asked, Su Qing wouldn't have suspected him at all. She wouldn't even think about him. Now, she couldn't help but remember what he said to her when he gave her snacks. He said that she was very happy now. He said it with a smile, so gentle. It seemed that after so many years, he had also changed a lot. He was no longer the young boy who liked to cause trouble when he was young. He had changed and become mature. After so many years, he had learned how to be kind to others. She could hear the disappointment in his words. She could only persuade him to get married as soon as possible. He wasn't young anymore. She couldn't remember what he said after that. All she knew was that he didn't reply to her. Instead, he continued his previous sentence and said, soon, you'll know what it means to be unhappy. Chapter 760. That sentence was said very softly, like a feather. Rather than saying that she didn't react, it was better to say that she didn't hear it. Now that she thought about it, she actually heard it, but she pretended not to. She knew that he had feelings for her for many years, and she also knew that she had always rejected him and chosen Wang Er, which was a big blow to him. She also knew that all these years, he had never married because of her. However, she could only be one person, and things like feelings were originally consensual. She liked Wang Er, so naturally, her heart couldn't be divided into two and fall in love with him again. She could only say sorry to him in her heart. Clear tears flowed from her eyes. She looked at the man on the ground and muttered to herself, is it him? Is it really him? For the past few years, she and her husband had been living peacefully together. They had been living with the Wang family day and night, and nothing had happened. However, since he came back, he said that he was willing to give her another chance, but she refused. He also said that she was really happy. He ate his pastries, but her husband didn't because he didn't like sweet things. Along the way, she ate all the things he gave her. Then, after she came back, her temperament began to change. It was really him. He came back for revenge. He had disappeared for so many years, not just to go far away. It turned out that after so many years, the hatred in his heart hadn't dissipated. So, for so many years, he had been planning and waiting for this day. He loved her, but he hated her even more. Because of her refusal, he finally couldn't help but want to kill her. Knowing that she was living a happy life, he made her kill her own children, her own parents, her beloved husband, and everyone in the Wang family. He wanted to make her feel pain and regret that she had chosen Wang Er instead of him. It was really him. Chen Qiuxing didn't run away. When the secret guard went to inquire about him, he quickly found out where he lived. When the secret guard went to his residence, he was sitting on a round chair and drinking tea leisurely. With regards to the dark guard's arrival, he seemed surprised, but at the same time, he didn't seem surprised either. Just like that, he was led by the dark guard to a small alley. Looking at the unrecognizable, ghost-like woman, he suddenly laughed. This was the woman he had loved for more than 20 years. In fact, she was only so. Look at her ugly appearance. Just looking at her made people feel disgusted, let alone marrying her. Qing, he really loves you. You've already become like this, but he never thought of abandoning you or divorcing you. In fact, he treats you even better than before. Chen Qiuxing had a handsome face. Compared to Wang Er's scholarly aura, he was more burly. He was not burly like a martial artist. He was tall, but not fat. His facial features were also very outstanding. The moment she saw him, especially after knowing that he might be the mastermind behind all this, Su Qing'er finally broke down completely. Disregarding everything else, he pounced towards him. Chen Qiuxing. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Why are you doing this to me? I have no grievances with you. Give me back my husband and my child's life. Chen Qiuxing let her grab his collar. Her nails were very sharp and her face was extremely distorted. No matter what she did to him, he didn't move at all. Instead, he laughed. Su Qing'er, I said that I would make you regret it. I used to love you so much and I gave everything for you. But what about you? Chapter 761. Think about what you've done to me. You've trampled on my deep feelings for you. My deep affection is not worth mentioning to you. I just can't compare to that fool in terms of making you happy, right? You'd rather choose a fool than me. You're a bastard, you beast. Bastard. Return my husband's life to me. Why did you hurt my family? They're innocent, they didn't do anything wrong, why did you treat them like this? I want you to see with your own eyes, this is the consequence of abandoning me. Su Qing'er, I'll make you regret it. I'll also let you have a taste of being abandoned. It's a pity, this group of Wang family people really treated you too well. Even though you've become like this, even if you want to eat them up, they still didn't abandon you, and even treated you as their daughter-in-law. Think about it, how laughable. His handsome face was scratched by Su Qing'er a few times, and blood flowed down, but he seemed to not feel the pain, and continued to smile, a smile full of mockery, with tears in his eyes. When he grabbed Su Qing'er, he forced her to look at him. Su Qing'er. Do you regret it? Let me ask you, do you regret it? If you had chosen me back then all of this wouldn't have happened, I would love you more than that fool, and we would still have our children, not only that, we would grow old together. Clap clap clap, the sound of hands clapping rang out from behind him. Chen Qiuxing turned around, and when he saw Shen Yueji, there was an unconcealable shock in the depths of his eyes. It was as though he saw Shen Yueji's existence, his attention was attracted by Su Qing'er, after all, she was the woman he had loved for so many years. In the past, Su Qing'er's beauty was one of the best in the capital. Although her Su family wasn't a wealthy family, her beauty was much more beautiful than some of the daughters of wealthy families. This was also the reason why he had loved her for so many years. In this world, which man didn't love beautiful women, and he was no exception. When he saw Shen Yueji, he realized that there was always a higher mountain and a higher sky. If Su Qing'er was said to be a beauty that could cause the moon to blush, then the lady in front of him was a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. Her beauty was indescribable. In front of her, Su Qing'er's beauty was like dust. He sighed. Since when was there such a beautiful woman in the capital? Why didn't he know? If he had known earlier, after saying so much, what kind of love is this? You can only say that you are unwilling. Looking into the man's eyes, she naturally couldn't ignore the shock in his eyes. Shen Yueji's lips curled into a cold smile. Chen Qiuxing, right? Tell me, this North Sea's onyx soul, where did you get it from? Chen Qiuxing's handsome face was filled with surprise. You know onyx soul? His rhetorical question was undoubtedly to prove to Shen Yueji that Double Happiness's guess was right. Inside Su Qing'er's body was North Sea's onyx soul. Such a vicious thing, and you actually placed it in the body of the woman you love the most. Is this considered love? I have loved her for so many years, and let her do whatever she wanted. Even if she turned a blind eye to my love, and looked on coldly from the side, I still never gave up. Chapter 762. At this point, Chen Qiuxing's eyes were filled with intense hatred. Even so, I still treated her well from the bottom of my heart and tried to please her. What about her? How did she treat me? You are a beast. If I had known that you were so cruel and merciless, would have died the moment I knew that you liked me. Rather than letting a disgusting person like you like me, I would rather end my own life than give you a chance to hurt them. Chen Qiuxing, you don't know what love is. You don't understand it at all. To love someone is to treat them well from the bottom of your heart and hope that they will be happy. In your eyes, I am living too happily, so you are not satisfied. You don't want to see me happy, so you tried your best to destroy everything about me. You destroyed my family. You want to see me abandoned by the world. You want to see me at the end of my rope. You want to make me regret that I didn't choose you back then. The Wang family was on fire. The fire was invisible at the beginning, but it was getting fiercer and fiercer. Su Qing'er looked at Wang Er's handsome face. Her ferocious face was filled with reluctance. She smiled. At this moment, it was as if she had let go of many things. She carried the man on her back with some difficulty and walked into the fire without looking back. Chen Qiuxing looked at her in shock. He was about to speak. Chen Qiuxing, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied now? I killed everyone in the Wang family with my own hands. My heart is already riddled with holes. I regret it. Yes, I regret it. You will see me regret as you wish. But what I regret is that I shouldn't have married you, and I shouldn't have married into the Wang family. I should have been alone for the rest of my life. Even if I die of old age, I won't have anything to do with you, Chen Qiuxing. Husband, I am going to accompany you now. From today onwards, we will never be separated again. In our next life, we will continue to be husband and wife. What I owe you in this life, I will definitely repay in my next life. Father, mother, my children. I was wrong. I am sorry. The fire grew fiercer and fiercer. In the face of death, Su Qing'er didn't have the slightest hesitation or fear. She resolutely entered the fire. Very quickly, her white clothes were engulfed by the fire. Seeing this, Double Happiness wanted to step forward to stop them. However, just as he took a step forward, Shen Yueji grabbed his arm. She looked back at Shen Yueji. Miss, it's useless. If she doesn't die, someone else will. I believe death is also a kind of release for her. She could not kill him, and was not afraid of swords and knives. Now, only this fire could burn her and the onyx soul in her body into ashes. She had killed so many people. Even if he saved her, she would not be able to live with a clear conscience. The woman's voice seemed to be echoing in his ears just now. He could hear her anger and her hoarse voice clearly. He should have been happy, but for some reason, Chen Qiuxing raised his head and looked at the scene where the woman walked into the crowd resolutely. She went in so decisively, without any reluctance to part with it. So fast that he could only see her thin and slender back view. The back view disappeared very quickly. Very soon, it disappeared from his eyes until it disappeared. He was indeed happy. Wasn't this what he wanted to see? Chapter 763. He had planned for so long, wasn't it for revenge? But, he did not see any hatred in her eyes. She should hate him, just like how he used to hate her, hated her for so many years, hated her to the point that he would dream of her in the middle of the night, and had feelings of love and hate for her. He could only torture her in the dream. Instead of torturing her, he might as well torture himself, because in the dream, she would be tortured by him, and would cry. When he saw it, his heart would ache, and he could not help but pull her into his embrace to comfort her. Chinchoshing was lost in a daze for a long time until a pink dress fell in front of him. He raised his head and looked at the beautiful face in front of him. You haven't told me, the long-lost onyx soul, how did it end up in your hands? And where did you get it from? The man stood up. He was tall, especially in terms of height. He was almost a head taller than Shin Yueji. Looking at Shin Yueji, he suddenly laughed. All these years, because of Su Qing, all kinds of women, I don't know how many beautiful women I have neglected. You really want to know, who gave me the onyx soul? Shin Yueji raised her eyebrows. It's not that I really want to know, just curious. Really? His gaze wandered around her body, and suddenly said, Sure, as long as you accompany me for a night, I will tell you, who gave it to me. Impudent. With an angry roar, Double Happiness walked forward, and angrily slapped his chest. Maybe it was because he was not prepared, or maybe it was because the man did not know martial arts. He was directly sent flying by the slap. His body stumbled in midair and hit the hard wall, then fell from a high place, and spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, he was no longer afraid of death. He only wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His wanton gaze never left Shin Yueji, and smiled. How is it? Consider it. I believe that my looks can also enter your eyes, and I am not one of those ugly and filthy people. Shin Yueji suddenly laughed. To me, you are not even comparable to that ugly and dirty person. You are not afraid of death, but are you not afraid that I will make your life worse than death? Double Happiness. What are you doing? I'm warning you, even if I did something wrong, I should be handed over to the authorities. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to punish me? Officials. If I want to meddle in something, would the government dare to say a word? Let's cut his ears first. I want to see how much pain he can endure. Yes. Shuangshi had wanted to make a move on him for a long time. If Miss was not here, it would not be easy for her to do it. Now that she heard Shin Yueji agree, she did not hesitate and directly stepped forward, one in each hand. The two ears were separated from his body just like that. Chinchoshing didn't even have time to react to the pain until the pain slowly invaded his body. Finally, he covered his missing ears with both hands and rolled on the ground, wailing without a care for his image. Ah! My ears! My ears! Kill me if you dare! Kill me! Give me a quick death! The pain in his ears made his voice tremble. Chinchoshing's originally clean white robe was covered in dust and blood after rolling on the ground for a while. Chapter 764. Shin Yueji crossed her arms, seeing his reaction. Her expression was indifferent, as though she was watching a doll being dissected. Isn't it too easy for you if I give you a quick death? How can I face the deaths of so many innocent people in the Wang family? Even for Miss Su, I can't give her an explanation. Gouge out his eyes. Yes, Mississippi, no. Don't gouge out my eyes. No. Seeing that he was about to commit suicide, Double Happiness reacted quickly. Without needing Shin Yueji's reminder, she rushed forward, and with the two bodyguards suppressing him. Chinchoshing was pressed to the ground, unable to move, and could only struggle and resist, but being pressed down by two highly skilled bodyguards, not to mention struggling, it was difficult for him to even move. Seeing Double Happiness step forward, this little beauty was considered pleasing to the eye, but at that moment, he could not appreciate her beauty, and could only struggle, twisting his body. Let me go. Let me go. No. Please let me go. As long as you let me go, I will say anything. Seeing that the man had loosened his tone, Double Happiness's eyes were filled with mockery. She stood up. I thought you were powerful. Just 2 years and you can't take it anymore. Why? Are you willing to obediently give up the mastermind? Yes. Can I trouble this lady to come closer? I can talk to you. Sensing his intentions, Shinyuaji frowned. Double Happiness, don't listen to him. Double Happiness's reaction was fast, but the man was even faster. But Double Happiness was a martial artist. No matter how fast the man was, he could not be faster than Double Happiness. He saw Shuangshi turn around, and the man missed and fell to the ground. The sharp stone cut his palm, and immediately, countless bloodstains could be seen spreading on it. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He was still holding something in his hand. Because of the hard object touching it, he could see a black thing twisting in the white powder. Looking closely, it was undoubtedly the onyx soul. This was how the onyx soul looked like when it was young, only when it kept on eating, like Su Chinger, the more it ate, the bigger it grew, and in the end, it would become the same as the onyx soul in Su Chinger's body. When it was hungry, it would crawl out of its master's body to find food. After eating, it would return to its master's body. But the onyx soul in Chinchoshing's hands was different. It was obviously a newly born egg, especially after Chinchoshing exposed it to the public. It struggled powerlessly in Chinchoshing's hands, and lost its life. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Seeing the young onyx soul dying in his hands, Chinchoshing suddenly laughed out loud. His laughter was ear-piercing. I will not let you torture me. As he spoke, he suddenly crawled up from the ground and rushed into the sea of fire. This time, Double Happiness was a step too late. Chapter 765. In the small alley, there was only a sea of blood and bloodstains on the ground. There was nothing else. After returning to the general's residence, Shinyueji went to Shinyuechi's residence. Perhaps he slept very late last night, so he was not awake yet. But after knowing that she was here, he quickly got out of bed and approached her. He smiled strangely. Are you looking for me? It was the first time in 1,000 years that his sister was finally willing to take the initiative to look for him. Shinyueji looked at him and nodded. Yes, there is something I want to ask you. Oh. What is it? Well, about the dark soul. Shuangshi said, but his face froze when he saw Shinyueji. Shuangshi continued. Master, do you still remember? You told me about the dark soul before. You said that it was an evil thing from the Jianghu in the northern underworld. It was caused by a person who went crazy while practicing martial arts. Yes, I remember. I did say that. And at that time, I also asked you to stay away from it. Although the northern underworld is far from the Phone Kingdom, it is hard to guarantee that the news would not reach the Phone Kingdom. Why? From what you said, you mean. Then, he looked at Shinyueji worriedly. Did you encounter it? Yes, but it was not us who were afflicted with the dark soul. It was a family in the capital city. A family in the capital city. This kind of thing was usually inflicted by people from the Jianghu or the children of officials. How could a family be afflicted with the dark soul? Shinyueji saw his doubt and said, this is also what I am confused about. Normally, a normal family should not have come into contact with these things. But the man who carried the dark soul with him ran into the sea of fire and committed suicide. I couldn't get anything out of him. Also, he would rather die than say anything. He was afraid of the wounds, but he still gritted his teeth. I don't know about this. But, you can ask Hong Fui. He is from the northern underworld. He should know about this. That's true. She had almost forgotten about this guy. Shinyueji turned around and left after saying that. Shinyueji saw that she left so decisively, and his heart ached. That, he called out to her. Shin Yueji looked back at him with a puzzled expression. Big brother. What's wrong? Did you come to find me just to ask these questions? Shin Yueji, he nodded helplessly. That's right. Otherwise, he would think that I'm here to ask him something. The corners of the man's mouth twitched, and he sadly buried his head in the quilt again. Oh, it's fine. You can go. Shin Yueji, he walked out of Shin Yueji's residence with a baffled expression. Miss, eldest young master is sad. Sad. Shin Yueji was even more confused. Double happiness, I didn't hurt his heart today, did I? Double happiness said. Young master has been sleeping for so long. According to the general and madam style, they won't care about him. As long as he doesn't die from his sleep, the general and madam will always indulge him. The eldest young master thought that Miss had come over to invite him to dinner, and his heart was warmed. But who knew that Miss would ask about the northern dark onyx soul, so eldest young master was heartbroken. Shin Yueji, she almost forgot about this. Her face turned black. If that's the case, then you have to replace me and ask Big Brother to wake up. It's time for him to eat. Chapter 766. Seeing that double happiness didn't move, Shin Yueji looked at her and asked, What's wrong? Double happiness put on a straight face and said righteously, Miss, it's useless. Even if you personally go back and call eldest young master for a meal, eldest young master will definitely know that it was this servant who reminded you of this. I'm afraid that eldest young master will be even sadder and feel that his position in Miss Heart needs someone to remind him. Rather than that, Miss, you might as well ignore eldest young master. This way, eldest young master's heart might feel better. Shin Yueji, actually, she didn't doubt double happiness's words at all because with Shin Yueji's strange logic, she could really think that way and think that she herself couldn't deal with it. Speaking of which, double happiness, you seem to understand eldest brother more than father and mother. Of course, after all, this servant and eldest young master and Miss grew up together. At the end of her words, she playfully stuck out her tongue. She probably felt that with Shin Yueji's current identity, it was inappropriate for her to say these things. Shin Yueji didn't take it to heart and smiled slightly. Why did I hear from father and mother that they previously kept you by eldest brother's side and had the intention to match you too? Shin Yueji didn't take it to heart and smiled slightly. Why did I hear from father and mother that they previously kept you by eldest brother's side and had the intention to match you too? In addition, Shin Yueji was the eldest young master of the general's residence. Although he was a bit strange, he was still a handsome man. In the capital, there were many young ladies who liked him. What she couldn't understand was that double happiness should be very smart. When she became the young madam of the general's residence, her treatment was much better than this. Moreover, Shin Yueji was a good match for her. Miss, you can't blame this servant. It was clearly this servant who didn't like eldest young master. When I see him, I always think of becoming sworn brothers with him. Miss, you say, this servant treats him as a brother. As a brother, how can a brother be a brother, don't you think so? Shin Yueji, this strange logic was exactly the same as Shin Yueji. To be honest, it was a pity that they didn't become a couple. Miss, are you going to ask young Master Hong Fui? And, just casually asking. Regarding onyx souls, I am indeed quite curious. Didn't Big Brother say just now, onyx souls are usually only possessed by people from the Jianghu or the imperial family. Chen Qiuxing is just an ordinary commoner. Even though he has left for so many years, it is impossible for him to be the mastermind. Moreover, when he was fighting with double happiness, he did not have the strength to resist at all. He did not even know some basic martial arts. From this, it could be seen that with his little skills, it was impossible for him to take the black soul from those who were highly skilled and possessed by the devil. Otherwise, he would have died many times, and it was impossible for him to appear in front of them alive and well. Thinking of this, Shin Yueji quickly returned to her room. Hong Fui just came back from outside. Seeing her anxious look, he raised his eyelids. "What's wrong? You can't wait any longer, so you want me to bring you back to the northern underworld? Other than the Xianming sect, is there another evil being in your north underworld?" Oh. After listening to her words, Hong Fui raised his eyebrows. "Where did you hear the rumor?" Shin Yueji was quiet for a while. She told him everything that she saw in the capital city today. Unexpectedly, the man chuckled in a low voice. Onyx Soul. Chapter 767. You really know. That's natural. The Onyx Soul is my North Sea's evil creature. This thing is very poisonous. If a person is poisoned by the Onyx Soul, not only will he not be saved, his body will also be controlled by the Onyx Soul. He will become neither a human nor a ghost. The key is that this fellow is especially good at eating. It can even eat a house. Plus, this thing is a carnivore. Other than meat, it doesn't eat anything else. However, why did the evil creature of North Sea come to your Feng nation? What is the background of that man called Qinqiusheng? I don't know. Listening to what Su Qing'er said before she died, this Qinqiusheng didn't have anything special about him. When they were young, they were childhood friends. Later, because Su Qing'er married her husband, Wang Er, Qinqiusheng left the capital city because of his love for her. They thought that he had moved away. Within a day, it was as if the Qin family had disappeared from this world, until... Shin Yueji paused. Do you think Qinqiusheng went to the northern underworld when he left the Feng nation? Whether it's the people of Feng nation or the people of Southern Mountain, they all covet the beautiful scenery of North Sea. They say that they went to North Sea to travel, but there are many people who settled down in North Sea. Hong Fui smiled. I think what you said is reasonable. Maybe Qinqiusheng was abandoned by the woman he liked and left Feng nation in a fit of anger. However, he didn't stay in North Sea to admire the beautiful scenery of North Sea, but to find a way to take revenge. After all, Wang family is a big family in the capital city. Qinqiusheng naturally can't do anything to them. Then, how did he get Black Soul? Is there someone helping him behind the scenes? Is this related to Xianming cult? Hong Fui shook his head. This should have nothing to do with Xianming cult. Xianming cult takes money to do things for others. Plus, Black Soul is an extremely poisonous thing. Ordinary people, even those with high martial arts skills, don't dare to raise it. If they don't have a good method to raise it, they will be easily bitten by this thing. By then, the loss will outweigh the gain. If Xianming cult had this thing, they wouldn't be safe until now. When I return, I will inform Mo Wushang and have him investigate this matter thoroughly. These dogs of the Jianghu had only been quiet for a short while, and now they were making a ruckus again. Before Qinqiusheng died, did he really not say anything beneficial? Shin Yueji shook her head. No. This person is afraid of death, but he seems to be more afraid of the person behind him. That's why he would rather commit suicide than say who the mastermind is. This is a little difficult. Actually, the Dark North royal family doesn't usually come into contact with these things. Moreover, Mo Wushang has more or less dealt with those treacherous officials in the court. With the Empress Dowager holding the line, those people definitely wouldn't dare to touch these things. I can only say that this should be the doing of the Jianghu people in the North Underworld. However, if they were Jianghu people, one of them was in the North Underworld, and the other was in the Feng Kingdom, why did they have to go so far to let the people from the Feng Kingdom do these things? Or, he looked at Shin Yueji. Su Qing'er's family is just a warning to the mastermind. Even Qin Qiuxing is just a pawn they used. Then who is their target? It couldn't be Feng Zhiqing again, right? In Shin Yueji's impression, the people of Jianghu would never ask about the affairs of the imperial court. Chapter 768. Hong Fui looked at her and suddenly raised his eyebrows. Why is it the emperor of the Feng Kingdom? Why don't you think about it? Maybe it's you. Me? Shin Yueji looked at him suspiciously, as if she was puzzled by his sudden words. She had not been to the northern underworld and was not familiar with everything in the northern underworld. So, why were those people targeting her? But Hong Fui's words made her think deeply. If they were really targeting Feng Zhiqing, then this matter would have happened in the palace and not in the capital, in the ordinary people's home. From Su Qing'er's words to her arrival, witnessing everything with her own eyes, it was obvious that this had been planned for a long time. Shin Yueji was silent and narrowed her eyes. If Hong Fui was not wrong, then the person behind this was really targeting her. But she had not offended anyone in the northern underworld. Who was warning her? This is what you need to guard against. The women in Brimming's harem are not easy to deal with. In addition, Mo Wushang rarely interferes with the affairs of the harem, so he doesn't know what kind of people they are and what kind of people they interact with. If that is the case, then the doubts in my heart are clear. You are not afraid. Shin Yueji raised the corner of her lips. What is there to be afraid of? Compared to me, they are much worse. After all, I am someone who has died once. That's true. But you still need to be on guard. This black soul is not an ordinary poison. There is no antidote in the world. You have seen what happened to Su Qing'er. She could not be killed by a sword. She could only rush into the fire to end her life. Moreover, as long as it is meat, she will eat it, whether it is human or beast. The person behind this is clearly targeting you, so you still need to be more vigilant to avoid being caught by the enemy. Knowing that Hong Fui was being kind, Shin Yueji nodded. I know. The young black soul is only the size of a person's fingernail. It cannot be exposed to the sun. If it is exposed to the sun, it will definitely die. However, the young black soul can enter a person's body in various ways without being detected. Even if it is placed in food, it is difficult to be detected. Even a silver needle cannot detect its existence. So, when you go to the northern underworld, if the concubines send you food, you must not accept it. Are you that worried that I will be harmed by those people? Hong Fui snorted coldly. I am not worried that you will be harmed by those women, but in the harem, the women are full of tricks. You are the one that Mo Wushang cares about the most. Pang Yuan alone is not enough. There are more women who want to find trouble with you and kill you. Just as you said earlier, you've already died once. You also know how big of a blow your death is to Mo Wushang. So, I don't want this to happen a second time. The first time, Mo Wushang was an exception. This time, if you are in any danger, not to mention the Empress Dowager, even I won't be able to save him. As long as they don't come looking for trouble with me, I won't take the initiative to provoke them. All you need to do is talk to them politely. She paused for a moment. I didn't plan to be friends with them when I went to the Dark North. Miss. Not good. Not good. While she was talking to Hong Fui, she suddenly heard a noise behind her. She turned around and saw Shuang Shi's anxious expression. She frowned. What's wrong? What made you so flustered? Chapter 769. His Majesty. His Majesty is injured, Shuang Shi was panting heavily. She was exhausted from running all the way here. She panted a few more times after she said that. Injured. If it was in the past, Shin Yueji would definitely be anxious when she heard that Feng Jiuqing was injured. She couldn't help but admire herself for being able to remain so calm and composed when she heard that Feng Jiuqing was injured. She wasn't anxious at all. On the side, Hong Fui interjected cooperatively, "How did you get injured?" Shuangxi only knew about Hong Fui's existence. When she heard his question, she immediately said, "It's concubine Ro Air." The smile on Shin Yueji's face froze. "Where is Ro Air now?" "I don't know. I heard from the people in the palace that concubine Ro took the blame for the death of Nan Yu's envoy. The emperor went to Huayong Palace. He only entered for a while before the imperial secret guards surrounded Huayong Palace." Concubine Ro. I didn't hear from the palace that concubine Ro was captured by the emperor. I only know that the emperor is seriously injured and is in danger. After hearing that Lu Qingru was fine, Shin Yueji let out a sigh of relief. That's good. Aren't you worried that something will happen to the emperor? The emperor is very lucky. How could he die so easily? Shin Yueji looked at him indifferently. Moreover, I am going to leave the Feng nation. No matter what happens to him, I will not enter the palace. If she knew that he was seriously injured, she might not be able to leave the palace for the rest of her life. Since she was going to give up on a relationship, why couldn't she cut it off completely? 3 days passed quickly. During this period, Shinhe would enter the palace once more to visit the emperor. Shinhe knew about the relationship between Shin Yueji and the emperor. When he came back, he was tactful enough to keep quiet. Now that his daughter was going to the North Underworld, Shinhe and Shinqiu were busy packing her luggage. Both of them were over 50 years old. When they knew that Shin Yueji was going to leave and might never come back, they were very upset. When Shin Yueji saw them crying like this, she must have felt bad. "Father, Mother, you'll have to go with me to the Northern Underworld sooner or later. I'm just going to scout. Don't cry anymore. Have you forgotten what I told you? I was the one who disobeyed the two of you and secretly ran to the Northern Underworld. If you continue to cry, people will suspect me." "I know, daughter, but I just can't control myself. It would be fine if your brother was with you, but you're alone. I'm worried about you. What if you feel uncomfortable on the bumpy road, or when you get there, you can't eat well or wear well?" Sitting in the carriage and listening to the Shin couple's nagging, Hong Fui sneered. "General Shin, Mrs. Shin, I think you are overthinking. You all know how much Imo Wushang cares about your daughter. You little brat, don't talk. I'm warning you, you have to take good care of my daughter on the way. If she loses weight or gets bullied while we're away, we won't let you off once we get to the Northern Underworld." Hong Fui's mouth twitched. He naturally took their threats seriously. He held his forehead and said, "Do I dare?" At most, Shin Yueji would bully him. Not to mention the Shin family, he would not dare to do anything to Imo Wushang. Chapter 770. After exchanging a few more words with the Shin couple, Shin Yueji left. Since Shuangxi was sitting in the same carriage with her, in order to avoid other people's suspicion, Hong Fui assumed the position of the driver. Actually, she was still a little reluctant. Shin Yueji lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked at the passing scenery of the capital. There were very few pedestrians in the capital today. Perhaps it was because Feng Jiuqing was injured and unconscious, the pedestrians in the capital were not as lively as before. She didn't deliberately think about Feng Jiuqing. Instead, she leaned on the soft mattress and looked at the passing scenery, deep in thought. "Miss, what's wrong? Are you reluctant to leave the capital?" "I am indeed reluctant, although there's nothing worth staying here anymore." Even the Shin couple, the only people she was reluctant to leave, would stay in the North Underworld like her in the future. However, the Feng Nation was the place where she had been born and raised. She had once abandoned everything for Feng Jiuqing. She had thought that after experiencing Feng Jiuqing's heart-wrenching betrayal, she had become more open-minded and would not be so foolish as to abandon everything for the love between a man and a woman. She had once thought that she would either perish together with Feng Jiuqing or, if she was lucky, she would carry her luggage and go to a place where she was alone and spend the rest of her life. But she didn't expect that she would abandon everything for a man and give it a try. Mo Wushang, she murmured this man's name in her heart. Hopefully, this time, you won't disappoint me. For the rest of my life, you will treat me sincerely. Never betray each other. I can clearly remember the scenery here, every scene, and every object. Shuangxi, you know, when a person has lived in a place for a long time, even a stranger will feel a sense of familiarity. But if you go to a strange place, even if it's someone you know, you will feel strange and you will need many years to get used to it. She always felt that Shuangxi should have adapted to Feng country. But for her, he was willing to abandon the place he was familiar with and go to the North Underworld with her. Speaking of which, Shen Yueji was quite touched. She held Shuangxi's hand and said, "When we reach the North Underworld, you must ask Mo Wushang to give you the status of a princess. We will be sisters." "How can that be?" Shuangxi covered her mouth in shock. "Miss, you can't do that. This servant is following you so that it's convenient for me to serve you. This servant has been by Miss' side for a lifetime. Wherever Miss is, that is Miss' home. If young Miss lets the son-in-law confer this servant the title of Junju, others will gossip." Shen Yueji smiled. "What are you afraid of? This servant doesn't care." Shuangxi curled her lips. "If I become a Junju, I will have to learn the rules in the palace." "Miss, do you have the heart to make me look like a rich young lady?" Listening to the conversation between the master and the servant, Hong Fui could not help but sneer from the outside. "Even an outsider like me can understand the meaning behind your lady's words. She is doing this for your own good. She wants you to get married in the future." "Marry?" Shuangxi widened her eyes and shook her head fiercely. "No, no, no, I won't marry. I won't marry. Men are the worst things in the world. I will stay by Mrs.'s side for the rest of my life and serve Miss forever. I won't go anywhere. Men are the worst things in the world." After choosing 3 of the best guest rooms, Shen Yueji glanced at the man who was staying in her room. "How do you know that this is a scam?" Hong Fui raised his eyebrows proudly. "In any case, they are people who live in the pugilistic world. The boss and the lady boss of this inn all have a murderous look on their faces. They can't hide the smell of blood on their bodies. In addition, it is impossible that there are no people who pass by here. Moreover, their inn is deserted. Otherwise, the people who come have been dealt with by them privately. Or..." Chapter 772. He sneered. "Or they are from the future. Since there is no one to take care of their business, their shop will naturally not be able to continue. Since they can't continue, they will not be able to get money to maintain their lives. Do you think they will still be willing to continue to open this shop?" In fact, even if Hong Fui did not say anything, the couple could not do anything to them. A black shop was undoubtedly putting something in the food to make people lose consciousness. When they were outside, she and Double Happiness both knew how to guard against this, so there was nothing to be afraid of. This couple did not know martial arts. They only knew how to use some drugs to force people to submit. However, do you think that if you give them a lot of money, they will be obedient? The way I see it, they must be thinking that we still have a lot of money here. Once they get rid of us, they will get even more money. I'm afraid that if they don't kill for a period of time, they can continue to maintain this inn's business. Hong Fui coughed a few times. That will depend on themselves. I never kill people easily. If they do not know what is good for them, then they cannot blame me for being cruel and merciless. Shin Yueji was speechless. For the first time, she felt that this word could be used in this way. Double happiness, take out some of our dry food. There is no need to eat theirs. Yes, Mississippi. Before they set off, Shin He and Shin Chio did not know how much dry food they had packed for her. Moreover, everything was very fresh and there were many varieties. When Hong Fui saw them eating, he got up from the bed. The couple in this inn is a black shop. They only need to rob people of their money. Why do they have to kill people? Don't you think it is strange? When he heard her question, Hong Fui raised his eyebrows. It is indeed strange. However, this is not something that you and I should meddle in. Jianghu is a place with many problems. People die every day. It is not as safe as the imperial court. Double happiness. Miss. Later, help me keep an eye on the couple in this inn. When they are asleep, you will go with me. Yes. You have been traveling for a day. What are you going to do if you don't rest? Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on them. They won't disturb your rest. You just need to have a good night's rest. Tomorrow, we'll continue our journey. The couple in this inn, whether they knew martial arts or not, even if they did, they deliberately concealed it, not allowing him to see it. In truth, Hong Fui did not take them seriously, because they might not be his match. I just find it strange. How did they deal with the guests who stayed in the inn in the past? If it was killed and buried, judging from the layout of the inn, it was clear that it had been open for many years. There was only one inn in a radius of several dozen kilometers. It was easy to imagine that there would be guests coming to this inn every day. It was also possible that someone had died in this inn not long after they arrived. Thinking of this, Shin Yueji suddenly remembered that when they came in, there was a table with a pot of hot tea on it, and the other tables were empty. From this, it could be seen that there was indeed a guest here not long ago. As for where that guest went, and where did they place him, moreover, this inn is different from the usual unscrupulous inn. It always makes me feel strange. Somehow, this inn. Chapter 773. Shin Yueji lowered her head and said thoughtfully, since these shops have been open for a long time, then the boss of this shop can't be so young. A young boss and lady boss wearing gorgeous clothes. It always makes me feel strange in such a place. Are you suspecting that they are coming for us? Not necessarily. No one knows that we are going to the North Underworld. Hong Fui's handsome face became dignified when he heard this. Indeed, the people in the Feng country don't know, but the woman in the Pure Yang Palace definitely knows. You are talking about Pang Yuan. Realizing what he said, Hong Fui coughed. Yes, I am just guessing. No matter how capable she is, it is impossible for her to extend her hands to the Feng country at this time. You know, this is not the North Underworld. It is not under her control. Humph, even if it is the North Underworld, it is the son-in-law's country. It is not her world. She is also not qualified to control it. Double happiness snorted in disdain. Hong Fui couldn't help but laugh. You little girl, when you reach the palace, you will definitely cause trouble for your young Mississippi. In my opinion, you should just follow me. I will take you to the brothel. I guarantee that your days will be more comfortable than following your young Mississippi. Double Happiness's face turned red. Bah, shameless. Who said I want to go to the brothel with you? This little girl had a blushing face and looked quite cute. Hong Fui laughed and stopped teasing her. He looked at Shin Yueji and said, "If you suspect the identity of the couple in this inn, it is more suitable to call me. After all, if it is really as you suspect, that they are highly skilled in martial arts and came prepared, you and your servant girl may not be their opponent. I have already accompanied you until now. 2 more days won't make a difference. I have to send you back to Imo Wushang safely. Okay, then we will wait until night. While they are asleep, we will go down to take a look. Miss, I think we don't need to wait at night. Look." Double Happiness, who was monitoring every movement downstairs, suddenly spoke at this time. She was leaning against the window and looked down at the young couple. From this distance, she could see everything clearly. Look at that couple. Following Shuangshi's guidance, Shin Yueji walked to her side. Sure enough, she saw the young couple holding something in their hands as they went to the backyard. In their hands was a shining knife that seemed to emit a deep light. Just the sharp edge of the knife was enough to let people know what they were going to kill. In the past, such a large knife would have been more than enough to kill a chicken, cow, or sheep. But when he saw the couple's expressions, it seemed that it was not as simple as killing these animals. Dong, dong, dong. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. Double Happiness went to open the door and saw the waiter from before coming in with the food. The man was all smiles as he said, "Dear customers, this is what the boss and the lady boss wanted me to deliver to you. Dear guests, you must be tired after traveling for such a long time. These are the specialty dishes of our inn. Why don't you try them? This lowly one will go boil some water for our esteemed guests so that they can have a good bath later to relieve their tiredness." Glancing at the food that he brought over, Shin Yueji smiled and said, "Did your inn have any guests today?" The waiter paused for a moment and then said with a smile, "Yes, yes, yes. There were indeed guests, but they didn't stay here. They said that they were in a hurry, so they took some dry rations from our inn and set off." Chapter 774. Why is your inn so empty today? Have there been any Jianghu people staying at your inn? The waiter paused for a while, then smiled. Of course there are, but they all left a while ago. The one who stayed the day before yesterday also left today after paying. Lady, we are all legitimate inns, not like what this young master said, a black inn. We are all outside, and it is not easy to do business. You must not misunderstand us. Whether it is a black inn or not, others might not be able to tell, but how can I not know? Hong Fui smiled coldly and interrupted his words. Suddenly, he raised his hand and flipped the food that the waiter was holding. The fresh food fell to the ground and made a crackling sound. The waiter instantly widened his eyes and stared at him angrily. "Young master, what do you mean? My lady boss was kind-hearted and afraid that you would be hungry after the journey, so she ordered me to bring food for you. How can you treat our lady boss's kindness like this? Black souls have always been the creatures of the North Underworld. Recently, they have appeared in Feng country one after another. Especially on this road, an unknown inn actually has the evil creatures of the North Underworld." Following Hong Fui's words, Shuangshi and Shin Yueji looked at the plate that was flipped over. As expected, they saw the head of the young black soul poking out from the food. It was the same size as the one they saw in Chen Qiuxing's hands in the small alley. It was the same size, but it could not see the light of day. It struggled on the ground for a few times and turned into a puddle of black water. Seeing that the black soul was recognized, the waiter's expression changed. He reacted and turned to escape. Shwa, the door was slammed shut, making an ear-piercing sound. A cold glint flashed by his ear, almost cutting off his ear. The waiter was scared stiff. He looked at the tightly shut door, then looked at the dangerous man behind him. "You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Since you know that we are a black inn, you should obediently give in. Gigolo, the person we want is not you. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and scram. Leave these two women behind, and maybe my boss and lady boss will spare your life. Oh. Not me. Hong Fui raised his eyebrows and smiled. True enough. Their target was Shin Yueji. From the moment Shin Yueji left for the Northern Underworld, she had been targeted by the people of the Northern Underworld. Now, he had no doubt who was behind this. Since it's not him, then it's me. Double happiness. Bang! As if he had already known that Double Happiness would make a move, the waiter was already prepared and met Double Happiness's palm. Immediately, Double Happiness staggered a few steps back from the impact. The waiter wasn't any better. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth, but he still swallowed it down. He probably didn't expect that a mere maidservant would have such a high level of martial arts. Miss, this waiter's martial arts were very high. Just now, Double Happiness could clearly feel that she had used her full strength to deal with him, but this waiter did not seem to use his full strength to deal with her. Perhaps because she was a woman, he didn't want to kill her directly and wanted to keep her alive, so he didn't use his full strength. It was also because the man did not expect Shuang Shi to have such a strong inner force in her body, so he underestimated her. Chapter 775. Suddenly, there was a scream from downstairs. The scream was shrill and piercing. It came from the backyard that the couple had entered. She looked at the waiter again, who had a smug smile on his face. However, his smugness didn't last long. Bang! His chest suffered another palm strike, and his whole body was immediately sent flying. Hong Fui flicked the dust off his clothes. Most dead people die because they talk too much. You killed him. His palm strike just now was not light. When the waiter was sent flying in front of her, she could even hear the sound of his body breaking. Especially when she saw him fall from the building and fall to the ground, unconscious for a long time. He won't die, but he will really become a disabled person. This guy is sinister and vicious. If we continue to let him live, I don't know what other tricks he will use. Listening to the scream from the backyard, it seems that someone came here today. Let's go and take a look. Okay. Originally, they planned to go later, when they were all asleep. Now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. Because the people in this inn couldn't wait any longer than they could. When they arrived at the yard, they still hadn't lifted the curtain to go in. Through the curtain, they could smell the strong smell of blood. Double Happiness stepped forward and lifted the curtain. What they saw was a cruel and bloodthirsty scene. 4 young men and women were tied to a tree. One of them had been tortured to the point that he didn't look like a human. The other 2 were also dying. The only remaining one had a face full of blood, but he looked quite handsome. He probably didn't expect them to suddenly rush in. The woman in the lead smiled coquettishly. Oh, I was going to leave you with a full corpse since you took the initiative to hand over the silver. But some people just don't know what's good for them and insist on rushing out to die. Husband. Yes, madam. As the woman finished speaking, the man suddenly raised his hand. There was a palm-sized thing in his hand. It was about to be turned. The young man who was tied to the tree suddenly shouted, "Miss, run." Pa! The woman raised the whip in her hand and whipped the young man's body. Suddenly, the young man's skin and flesh were torn. He was in so much pain that he couldn't speak for a long time. You talk too much. The woman was half distressed and half dissatisfied as she reprimanded, Look, you've suffered a loss, haven't you? Seeing that you're so good-looking, I was planning to let you live a little longer, but you just had to disobey and remind these 3 strangers. Rumble. After the man pressed the button, the ground where the three of them were standing suddenly cracked open, and their bodies became unstable. You want to deal with this young master with this little trick of yours? You overestimate yourself. Hong Fui snorted coldly. He grabbed Shin Yueji and Double Happiness's waists and brought them into the air. Then, he descended from the sky and landed in front of the man. The man was stunned for a moment. Hong Fui directly hit him with his palm, while Shin Yueji conveniently snatched away the mechanism in his hand. It was a stone that was about the size of a jade pendant. There were many buttons on it, which should be all the mechanisms in the inn. Pressing any random button would cause a mechanism to appear. Sure enough, this was indeed a black inn. Even if it was a black inn, it couldn't have such a complete set of equipment. It seemed that what was amazing was not the martial arts of these three people, but the various mechanisms of this inn. Chapter 776. Damn it! Seeing that the jade that controlled the mechanism was taken away, the woman cursed angrily, "Useless thing, quickly take back the jade." Where is Chun? They could not even complete a task. Looking at their lively appearance, it did not look like they were poisoned at all. Could it be, they did not eat those dishes? Chun! Are you talking about that useless thing? I am afraid that he is about to die from blood loss, right? If Beauty is worried about him, why don't you go in and have a look? Maybe you can save his life. Hong Fui smiled faintly. His provocation was already very obvious. The woman stared at him fiercely. Hong Fui, you and I are the same kind. You better leave as soon as possible. Don't ruin my plan. Otherwise, when you return to the North Underworld, you will not have a good ending. Did Imperial Consort Pang send you? Seeing that he said the mastermind so straightforwardly, the woman's face changed. She immediately dispersed her internal power. Nonsense. There are so many women in the harem who know that the Emperor likes the Imperial Consort of the Foam Kingdom. There are countless of them who want to get rid of her. How do you know that it must be Imperial Consort Pang? Yes, there are so many women in the harem of the North Underworld who like Mo Wushang. Naturally, there are countless of them who want to get rid of me. However, to be able to control the Black Soul, if she does not have some background, who would be willing to work for her? Shin Yueji took a step forward, and who else can get the news that I am going to the North Underworld so accurately? She originally thought that even if Pang Yuan wanted to find trouble with her, it should be after she reached the North Underworld. As long as she did not take the initiative to provoke her, she would not do anything to her. Unexpectedly, she had just set off from the Foam Kingdom, and Pang Yuan was already so eager to get rid of her. Ha 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 ha, the woman laughed out loud. Since you know that it is my consort who wants your life, you should consciously go back to your Foam Kingdom and be a good Imperial Consort of the Foam Kingdom. How dare you think of going to the North Underworld and fight with your master for a man? Do you really think that the Northern Underworld is your, Shin Yueji's, territory, the Shin family's world? Hong Fui, I will give you one last chance to choose. Stand on the consort's side, and you will have endless benefits in the future. If you continue to follow this arrogant woman, you will not be able to bear the consequences when the Imperial Consort gets angry. Hong Fui squinted his eyes and said, Do you really think that I am easily frightened? Fine, you asked for it. The woman shouted angrily, and her expression changed drastically. The luxurious clothes on her body were torn apart in an instant and fluttered in the wind. The tight-fitting clothes were like a venomous snake climbing on her body. Seeing the pattern on her body, Hong Fui's facial expression finally changed. Are you from the evil poison cult? Poisonous dark cult? Miss, the evil poison cult is an evil cult. Although it is not as famous as the Xianming cult, the evil poison cult is good at raising snakes, and every snake is extremely poisonous. In addition, the people from the evil poison cult are all highly skilled in martial arts, and they are naturally poisonous. The evil poison cult had always used the symbol on a person's body to determine the strength of a person's martial arts. The woman in front of him had a six-headed snake on her body, and it was obvious that her martial arts were among the top 4 in the evil poison cult. She said that she took orders from Pang Yuan. The Pang family always claimed to be virtuous, but since when did they start to get involved with such evil people? Chapter 777. Hong Fui frowned. If it wasn't for this trip with Shin Yueji, he wouldn't have known how many secrets Pang Yuan had. Seeing that this woman had made such a big scene, it was obvious that she wouldn't give them a way out. It seemed like she wanted to perish together with them. When Pang Yuan was in the palace, he had some interactions with her. She had even invited him for tea, but he didn't expect that she would be crazy to this extent. Go to hell! The woman shouted. Her body suddenly left, and countless black things spread out from her body. Following her shout, the young man closest to her exploded. Bang, 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 countless sounds came from his body. In a short time, his body also exploded. He didn't even have time to react before becoming a pile of ruins. Fortunately, Hong Fui's reaction was fast enough. However, he still had to bring 2 women with him. If he was alone, he could still fight against this woman from the dark poison cult, but if he brought them along, he would obviously have to avoid this woman's cruel moves. The dark poison cult mostly used their own bodies to perish together with the enemy. He was afraid that if he didn't use a foolproof method, the 3 of them wouldn't be able to escape from this woman's evil hands. Shin Yueji, listen to me. You guys go first, I'll hold her back. No, if you want to leave, leave together. I won't let you stay and take the risk. Moreover, the person she wants to kill is me. At this moment, the woman's appearance was no longer as bright and beautiful as before. At this moment, her entire person seemed to have appeared from hell. Her hair was disheveled, her face ugly, and her eyes scarlet. Run. You think you can run away? Swish, although the woman's sharp words had caused all the trees around her to be uprooted, even the house was on the verge of collapsing. Miss, leave quickly. If you don't leave now, it will be too late. In the current situation, there was no time for them to think. This woman had already gone crazy, and it was obvious that she wanted to perish together with them. If Shin Yueji didn't leave, then they would all die here. It wasn't that their martial arts weren't her match, but that the enemy they were facing was a lunatic. She was crazy enough to want to perish together with them, so how could they be her match? In addition, the dark poison cult had always been famous for its poisonous snakes. The moment the tree was uprooted, Shin Yueji saw countless poisonous snakes emerging from the ground. Pfft! Finally, Hong Fui could not take it anymore and spat out a mouthful of blood. Bang! Another loud sound rang out. When the woman took advantage of the man's clone to attack him, another figure descended from the sky. Ji Chu's face darkened as he blocked the woman's palm. Probably because she didn't expect that there would be someone behind her, the woman staggered from the attack. She couldn't retract her inner force in time and suffered a backlash as well. She took a few steps back with a trace of dark red blood at the corner of her mouth. When she saw Ji Chu, she smiled faintly, so it's bodyguard Ji. I was wondering who it was. The Emperor really likes this phone country's imperial consort Shin very much. He even sent you, his most capable confidant, to protect her. Stop talking nonsense. The Dark North royal family has never had any dealings with the dark poison cult. Why are you making such a big fuss here today? Since you know who they are, you should know how important Miss Shen and Mr. Fui are to our master. Chapter 778. If you hurt them, do you think you can run away? I did this behind your back. But if you want to blame someone, blame yourselves for being too smart. Since you already know who the mastermind is, it seems that in order to show your loyalty, I have to kill all of you. After all, a dead man's mouth was the tightest. Is that so? Then let's see if you have the ability. Another cold and disdainful voice came from behind her. The woman abruptly turned around and saw a middle-aged woman with a head full of white hair. The moment she saw her, the woman's face was filled with surprise and shock. Bai. Grandma Bai. Grandma Bai was the sworn sister of the North Underworld's Empress Dowager. One of them became the North Underworld's Empress Dowager while the other lived in seclusion. Although they were far apart, their relationship was as good as when they were young. Moreover, it was said that Grandma Bai was very powerful. Even the sect master of the dark poison cult might not be her match, let alone her, a six-headed serpent god. Now that Grandma Bai was here, was it to prove something to her? The Empress Dowager also knew about this. After all, in this world, no one could make Grandma Bai listen to them. She was the kind of person who couldn't be invited and wouldn't give face to anyone. But this Grandma Bai only listened to the North Underworld's Empress Dowager. Humph! With a cold snort, Grandma Bai glanced at the woman's shocked face with disdain. During my seclusion, all kinds of monsters dare to come out. If it wasn't for that old woman who told me, my future daughter-in-law would have died in your hands. Peng Yuan, that little bitch, I didn't like her since she was young. I didn't expect her to be so annoying when she grew up. You dash, what about you? Why don't you choose a way to die? Could it be that you need this old woman to personally kill you? The woman's complexion was unsightly. If it was anyone else, including Ji Chu and Hong Fui, their martial arts were equal. In addition, her dark poisonous cult's methods had always been fierce and vicious. She would have been able to fight against them. However, she really couldn't fight against this old woman in front of her. She clearly knew her own cultivation. Even their cult leader might not be able to defeat this woman, let alone her. If she were to infuriate her at this moment, it would be a small matter if she were to die, but if she were to implicate the dark poison cult, the cult leader would definitely not let her off. However, when she thought about how she had failed the mission that the hierarch had given her, she wondered what kind of punishment she would receive when she returned. Finally, she made up her mind and closed her eyes. I've long heard that Grandma Bai's martial arts are excellent. Although you've been living in seclusion for many years, you've always been talked about and respected by the people of Jianghu. Today, I'd like to ask for advice from Grandma Bai. Schwa. Unfortunately, before she could display her martial arts skills, Lin Fan had already taken a step back. A sharp, cold air brushed past her face. Immediately, the woman was sent flying, unable to resist at all. Grandma Bai's palm was not light. For her, it was only 50% of her inner force. Just 50% was enough to shatter her internal organs. This was something that even the hierarch might not be able to do. However, one could imagine how powerful Grandma Bai was. She and the woman were not on the same level at all. The woman couldn't help but start to regret. It was all because of her eagerness to gain merit. Chapter 779. She thought that if she accepted this mission and completed it smoothly, the sect leader would look up to her. Then, the entire dark poison cult would respect her even more. Now, she realized that in front of Grandma Bai, the martial arts that she was so proud of were not even worth mentioning. She did not even have the strength to fight back. She spat out another mouthful of blood. The woman crawled on the ground and struggled with difficulty. Grandma Bai walked in front of her and looked down at her. The dark poison cult is not as good as the Xianming sect. They do all kinds of dirty things behind my back. It seems that these messy people and sects in the Jianghu should be punished after I've lived in seclusion for so many years. The woman wanted to speak, but Grandma Bai did not give her the chance. The woman's eyes were wide open and soon, she lost all signs of life. After dealing with the trivial matters, Grandma Bai turned around and looked at Shin Yueji. She looked her up and down seriously, and her expression was very satisfied. Not bad, not bad. I didn't believe it at first. That old man praised you like there was no one else in the world. I didn't expect you to be so beautiful. You are even more beautiful than I was when I was young. She went forward and grabbed Shin Yueji's hand. She did not care if Shin Yueji knew her or not. Daughter, I forgot to introduce myself. I am Shang-er's godmother. I will be your mother in the future. We will be a family in the future. When we reach the North Underworld, you can't just be filial to that old woman and not to me. Shin Yueji was speechless. After a long time, she pulled her hand out of Grandma Bai's hand and looked at her. After a long time, she said, "You are Mo Wushang's godmother." Listening to her questioning tone, if Hong Fui and the others were not there to testify, Grandma Bai would not believe her. Did she think she was a liar? Grandma Bai instantly felt deeply hurt. She covered her chest painfully. "My dear daughter, what are you talking about? You don't know me. Could it be that when Shang-er was with you, he never mentioned me?" Shin Yueji was speechless. Not to mention Grandma Bai, even the Empress Dowager of the North Underworld had never mentioned him after she knew his identity. He would only tell her when she asked him a few questions. Not to mention his godmother. Even his own mother couldn't be bothered to answer, let alone his godmother. Grandma Bai was sad. She hugged her chest and said, "What a sin, what a sin. Shang-er has wasted all these years. I doted on him so much, but he didn't even praise me to my future wife. Dear daughter, you must believe me. I am not lying to you. I am indeed Shang-er's godmother, your future godmother-in-law. Hong Fui, why are you still standing there foolishly? Also, Ji Chu, hurry up and prove my identity to my future wife, lest my daughter suspects that I'm a swindler." The corner of Hong Fui's mouth twitched. Just now, when he was fighting with the woman from the dark poisonous cult, he had suffered heavy injuries, but after hearing Grandma Bai's complaint, he immediately became much more spirited. He held his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. "I'm not a fool. Why would I suspect your identity? But how long have you been hiding here? How did you know that I was already here? If I didn't come early, how could I have come so coincidentally?" Oh. Grandma Bai didn't think there was anything to be mysterious about. She smiled and glanced at Shin Yueji. Chapter 780. Alas, this future daughter-in-law, I really like her. Why is she so likable? It's true that I came early. I heard from the old woman that you are going to take my daughter back to the northern underworld. In addition, the old woman was worried that you would have an accident on the way, so she asked me to come and help. This matter is related to the safety of my future daughter-in-law. How can I be slow, so I came early. I knew that this is the road you must pass, so I ambushed here early. Then, Granny, did you already know that this inn is a black inn? Grandma Bai understood the meaning of her words and patted the back of her hand. Daughter, don't blame Granny for being cruel. This is the situation in Jianghu. Every day there is fighting and killing. These people don't even have a sense of defense. How can they survive in Jianghu in the future? People die every day in Jianghu. Granny can't save them. Shin Yueji naturally knew this truth. She just asked casually. She didn't expect her to understand her meaning so quickly. I'm just curious about the identity of these two people. Ordinary black inns will not be so cruel. Before this, was there another owner of this inn? Yes. Grandma, I thought about it seriously, it's true. Before this, it seems to be 3 days ago. This inn was guarded by a pair of old women. Although they are old women, looking at their age, whether it is the way they do things or the way they walk, they don't seem to be old people. Daughter, to tell you the truth, this inn is indeed a black inn. But before this, the owner of this inn only knows how to take people's money. He will not kill them. These 2 people were sent by the Dark Poison Cult. The Dark Poison Cult has always been cruel and fierce. After they killed the previous owner of the inn and replaced him, the purpose is to wait for your arrival. When the time comes, they will attack you. At this moment in the northern underworld. Pyongyang Palace. Pang Yuan came back from the Xi'an Palace. Her face was full of gloom. Obviously, she did not get any benefits. Xiao looked at her and quickly poured her a cup of tea. What's wrong, lady? You went to the Empress Dowager early in the morning. Why did you come back so angry? Are you angry with the Empress Dowager? Angry? Pang Yuan smiled coldly. Do I dare to be angry with her? She's the only one who's angry with me, but I'm still filial to her and let her be. Miss Xiao, I feel that something is not right. Empress? What's wrong? In the past, the Empress Dowager treated me like her own daughter. Every time I went to visit her, she would smile and hold my hand. But this time, she spoke to me coldly. I don't know what I did wrong to make her hate me so much. Nyang Nyang is worrying too much. Hasn't His Majesty just returned to the palace? This servant heard that His Majesty seemed to have angered the Empress Dowager again today. This servant thinks that the Empress Dowager is unhappy and has nowhere to vent her anger. Nyang Nyang, you also know that the Empress Dowager's temperament is like that little girl and needs to be coaxed. Even the Empress is much more mature than the Empress Dowager. With her explanation, Pang Yuan finally felt a little better. Did Brother Huangdi quarrel with Empress Dowager again? Yes, it seems like the Emperor wanted to return to the Feng Kingdom, but the Empress Dowager didn't allow it. In addition, the internal strife in the royal court had just been resolved, and the Emperor's identity was also known by the Feng Kingdom's Emperor. The Empress Dowager was afraid that the Emperor would be in danger if he returned, so the 2 of them quarreled because of this. Chapter 781. It's called quarreling, but Big Brother Emperor would never lower himself to Empress Dowager's level. Usually, it's Empress Dowager who keeps talking while Big Brother Emperor listens. Pang Yuan couldn't help but complain about Empress Dowager. Big Brother Emperor is already busy enough dealing with state affairs, but Empress Dowager always causes trouble for him. If Nyang Nyang's words were heard by the Empress Dowager, she would probably say that Nyang Nyang only has His Majesty in your heart and doesn't care about this old woman. Alright, Xiao Heir. Now even you are making fun of me. Have I been indulging you so much that you can even make fun of me, an imperial concubine of a country? Xiao Heir hurriedly smiled and teased. I wouldn't dare. I wouldn't dare. Please calm down, Empress. But Xiao Heir, I always feel uneasy. I don't know why, but I feel that Empress Dowager seems to know something. Do you think the Dark Poison Cult is reliable? Don't worry, Your Highness. The Grand Preceptor once saved their sect master's life. In addition, the Dark Poison Cult has long since submitted to our Pang family. Even if the members of the Dark Poison Cult are captured, they will use their lives to keep their mouths shut. They definitely won't betray you. I naturally trust the Dark Poisonous Cult, but I'm just afraid of what if. I have a feeling that the Empress Dowager already knows about this. So what if she knows? The Empress Dowager treats you like her own daughter. That woman from the Feng Nation is just an outsider. Moreover, she was originally the imperial consort of the Feng Nation's emperor, but now she's with the emperor. This woman must be indecent. Empress Dowager hates this kind of indecent woman the most. Even if Empress Dowager knows about this, she won't interfere. She might even help you instead. After all, Empress Dowager loves you so much. Plus, Empress Dowager watched you grow up. That being said, but the uneasy feeling was so strong that Pang Yuan faintly felt that things were not as simple as Xiao said. She naturally knew that Empress Dowager treated her like her own daughter, but even so, but where did the uneasy feeling come from? Forget it. She closed her eyes and rubbed the space between her eyebrows. I hope they can keep their mouths shut about this. And Hong Fui, I didn't want to take his life. If it wasn't for him protecting that bitch, her beautiful face was gradually replaced by a sharp look. Anyone who was disloyal to her deserved to die. She had also given him a chance to live because he was her brother's best friend. It was him who didn't know what was good for him. Xiao, is Brother Emperor still unwilling to see me? Hearing the dejection in her master's voice, Xiao smiled slightly. Your Highness, the Emperor has just returned from Feng country. He hasn't cared about the Northern Underworld's affairs for a long time. In addition, so many things have happened in the Northern Underworld, and there are so many treacherous officials and rebels. The Emperor has spent a lot of effort to deal with them. He even rarely goes to the Empress Dowager. These rebellious officials will only cause trouble and distract Brother Emperor. Even death wouldn't be an exaggeration. My Emperor brother is so pitiful. How can his body take it when he works so hard every day? That little bitch from Feng Nation. How dare you covet my brother Emperor? I will definitely let her die with everlasting regret. This was the consequence of daring to covet her man. The sharpness on Pang Yuan's face shocked even Xiao herself. Chapter 782. However, when she thought about how her master was like this because of the Emperor, she felt slightly relieved. In the past, the imperial concubine was gentle and graceful, smart and beautiful. Although she was a little spoiled because of her family background, she would never be like this in front of her, like this. In Feng Nation at that moment. After being unconscious for 2 days and 2 nights, Feng Nation was in a state of panic. Shen He would enter the palace every once in a while. In the past 2 days, he had entered the palace at least 10 times. When he saw the Emperor's complexion, he finally felt better. The officials in the palace all heaved a sigh of relief. Even the imperial physicians in the palace shrunk their necks subconsciously. During the 2 days when the Emperor was unconscious, countless officials had been sentenced to death. They were the last batch. If the Emperor still didn't wake up, they might lose their lives. Fortunately, the Emperor had finally woken up. Feng Zhiqing opened his eyes. His vision was a little blurry. Perhaps because he hadn't opened his eyes for 2 days, the sunlight today was a little dazzling. He subconsciously reached out his hand to block the dazzling light. Shen He saw that he had woken up and hurriedly stepped forward. Your Majesty. You're awake. You're finally awake. The officials in the palace knelt down. Your Majesty. You're finally awake. Only the heavens knew that the entire Feng Nation was in a mess because of the Emperor's accident. Feng Zhiqing was the ruler of Feng Nation. If anything happened to him, Feng Nation would fall into eternal damnation. I'm useless. I've sent troops to search for that evil woman 2 days ago. They searched the entire capital of Feng Nation. They didn't even let go of the palace, but they still couldn't find that evil woman. Perhaps because the voices were too noisy, Feng Zhiqing closed his eyes. After a while, he opened his eyes and looked at Shen He. There's no need to search. You won't find her. If she hadn't exposed her identity 2 days ago, he still wouldn't have known that Lu Qingru was the saintess of the Northern Underworld Xianming cult. Speaking of which, it was quite ironic. He prided himself on being calculative and smart. No matter who he schemed against, no one's identity could escape his eyes. First, it was Imo Wushang. Then, it was Lu Qingru. He clenched his fists tightly. Were they all doing this for that woman? He had originally thought that the woman was just an unattractive plaything. He had never imagined that there were so many people who were willing to become enemies with him for her sake. Unfortunately, he curled his lips slightly. So what if it was for her? She was already dead. Dark North, Xianming sect. He had really underestimated them. Let's not talk about whether he could still cooperate with the Emperor of Southern Peak to fight against the North Sea. If the North Sea and the Xianming sect were to join forces, how could they get rid of them so easily? The Mystic Dark sect had never cared about the affairs of the underworld. Now that Lu Qingru was their Mystic Dark sect saintess, why would she? Why would she watch coldly as he sent troops to attack the northern underworld? No matter when, the hatred in her heart had always been completely exposed. That pair of misty eyes had always disdained to hide it. It's been 3 days since Yu Ji returned to the manor. Subject Shin, is she doing well in the manor? This, he didn't know if it was the Emperor's careless question or something else. Shenhe's face instantly turned ugly. He found it hard to speak. Seeing his worries, he felt a little uneasy. He knew that many things must have happened during the 2 days he was unconscious. Chapter 783. If Shin Yueji was in the palace, he might not have time to take care of her, but if, back at the general's mansion, Shinhe alone could protect her. Looking at Shinhe's stuttering expression, he sat up straight and asked, "Did something happen to Yueji?" "Oh, no, no." Shinhe shook his head, "Don't worry, Your Majesty. My daughter is fine, it's just what? Your Majesty might not know, but General Shin is unable to speak to Your Majesty." One of the officials standing behind Shinhe took the initiative to speak up when he saw that Shinhe was stuttering and unable to speak. Feng Zhiqing's face was pale, but he still looked handsome. He looked at the official who spoke. What is it that he can't speak about? What happened to Imperial Concubine? Imperial Concubine ran away with another man. What? In that instant, the shock that spread from the bottom of his heart was torturing his limbs and bones. But very quickly, Feng Zhiqing calmed down. He shot a sharp gaze at the minister who spoke. "Minister Liu, do you know what you're saying?" Minister Liu was shocked and hurriedly knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty, please calm down. What I said is true. If Your Majesty doesn't believe me, you can ask General Shin yourself. General Shin is Imperial Concubine Shin's biological father. Your Majesty can't not believe what General Shin said, right?" "Yes, Your Majesty." At this time, another official knelt on the ground. "Your Majesty may not know, but when Your Majesty was in a coma, Imperial Concubine Shin colluded with someone else to leave and was discovered by General Shin. General Shin had a big fight with Imperial Concubine Shin. He even said that if she dared to run away with another man, he would not recognize her as his daughter. Not only that, the man paused for a moment before continuing. In order to make Imperial Consort Shin stay, General Shin fought with the person who attempted to take Imperial Consort Shin away and even injured himself. If Your Majesty does not believe me, you can have General Shin lift up his clothes and have a look. On his chest, there is a stab wound caused by the criminal. Because Your Majesty was in a coma, General Shin was worried about Your Majesty's body. After hearing the news, he couldn't care about Imperial Concubine Shin and rushed to the palace to see Your Majesty. Until now, General Shin hasn't had time to bandage his wound. His breath seemed to be stuck in the depths of his throat, and he couldn't breathe no matter what. Feng Zhiqing clutched his chest in pain as he found it hard to breathe. At this moment, his handsome face was as pale as a sheet. He looked at Shin-hee, and after a long time, he forced out a sentence. You said Yu-ji ran away with another man. Who was it? If I'm not mistaken, that man must be the Prince Regent. At that time, Imperial concubine Shin was furious. It was obvious that she and General Shin had a falling out because of the Regent. Whether it was Madame Shin's pleading or General Shin's threats and injuries, she turned a blind eye. For the Regent, she was willing to bear the infamy of being unfilial and wanted to leave. Pfft! He spat out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone without any warning. The crimson blood dyed the bed red almost instantly. Everyone was stunned when they saw this. In an instant, all the ministers and servants in the bedchamber knelt on the ground. After Feng Zhiqing spat out a mouthful of blood, he only felt that his whole body was on the verge of collapse. His vision gradually became gray and blurred, and in the end, his body fell straight to the ground. Your Majesty! Chapter 784. The sound of panic and fear gradually became indistinct in his ears. There was only one sentence in his mind now. Yu-ji ran away with another man, Mo Wushang. She went to find him. If it was before, he wouldn't have understood the complicated feeling of being rejected by her. Now, he finally understood. It was suffocation. It was suffocation. It was the suffocation of being abandoned and betrayed by the woman he loved. Discomfort, pain, all the most uncomfortable emotions in the world intertwined with his body. He couldn't even breathe. He felt like his soul was about to be pulled out and he had become a soulless empty shell. Yu-ji, you really are so heartless, left with another man, betrayed me. Did he trust her too much? Did he believe that she was willing to stay and be his empress? Or did she say she wanted to return to the general residence because she missed her parents and wanted to share the joy of being his empress with her father and mother? It turned out that she had a plan from the very beginning. It turned out that what she told him before was all true. She was just curious about him. She had never truly liked him, it was never. Daughter, look. This is the territory of the North Sea. Don't worry, no one will dare to bully you here. From now on, the North Sea Emperor will be your husband and the North Sea Empress Dowager will be your mother. With my status in the martial world, no one will dare to say anything about you even if you do whatever you want in the North Sea. In the carriage, Grandma Bai lifted the curtain of the carriage to let her see the scenery outside. The streets were bustling with people. The familiar hawkers were the same as those in Feng country. However, the people here and the way they dressed were very different from Feng country. For some reason, Shin Yueji had been feeling uneasy, as if something bad was about to happen. After Grandma Bai's introduction, she felt much better. She followed the direction of Grandma Bai's finger and looked outside. The lush green shallots were breathtakingly beautiful. The scenery of the North Sea is famous in this world. There are many people in Feng country who moved here because they liked the scenery of the North Sea. When their carriage reached the North Sea, it was already late at night. They also entered the imperial city. When they arrived at the imperial palace of the North Sea, it was already midnight. There were very few stars outside. Shin Yueji had originally planned to see Mo Wushang first. After all, she hadn't seen him for a long time. She didn't think much of him when she was in the Feng nation, but after coming to the northern underworld, he was the only person she knew and could be close to. She inexplicably began to rely on him. However, she did not know if it was because she was too obvious, but Grandma Bai saw through it. She grabbed Shin Yueji's hand and didn't let her move. Little girl, don't blame me for not reminding you. We're all experienced people. As a woman, you can't take the initiative to find a man. Otherwise, this man will easily take an inch, and you have to let him take the initiative to find you. So many things have happened in the Dark North Court. These things must have been bothering him to the core. Only then can you test how important you are to him, and see if it's because you've come to the northern underworld that he's willing to put down all his errands to see you, or if it's because of the errands at hand that he chooses to ignore you. Shin Yueji didn't even need to probe to know that Mo Wuxiang would definitely come to see her first.